Hi folks, Gregory here from 1 in 20 D&D, and this is going to be my Session 1 recap for our campaign, the VÄRLDEN Reach. So, you may have seen my Session 0 recap, and wow, I'm reeling. I meant to do this right after the game session, but I've been really busy, and so I'm finally getting it to it. Here's what I found. First of all, this campaign I think is going to be out of control. I think it's going to be an amazing, amazing time. We're playing 5e Dungeons and Dragons, and the players and the DM are all top notch. I can't say enough about how much fun I had. The role playing was incredible. This is just my recap, my kind of like way to hash out some of the things that happened in my high points of the game session and so forth. If you want to listen to the actual live play of the game, you can go and check out the Bearded Bugbears YouTube channel. I'll leave a link for you guys to those. There's two videos, part one, part two, and like before the break and after the break. So I'll link those in the info below. Now, here's what happened. We started out in the city of Unity. We've all the characters from their various backgrounds have decided to join the Vokter. And the Vokter are kind of this like they're like the protectors of the realm, and we have been assigned to sort of a like a specialty unit to go and deal with the things that like local militia and local military or army or what have you can't deal with. The local law can't handle. It's like too much for them. Well, our commander, I guess, called us in. His name is Crag. He called us into the training hall and set us out on our first task. Apparently, there was an orphanage in the city or town of Vilson that, well, they had these children that were like struck dumb. They would wake up with their eyes were open, but they wouldn't get out of bed. They wouldn't do anything. Well, so this headmistress of this orphanage said she needs help because she doesn't know what to do, and more kids, almost or more than half of the kids are being afflicted, and she's kind of at a loss. So we get assigned to go and investigate. So the group heads out. We're on the road. It takes, I think, about 4 days or so to get there. Well, when we're about 1 day out of town on our first watch, Marana, our ranger, is on the watch with her cat, Panther, Ku, and they kind of sense something approaching. So they start to deal with that. She sends her cat out. She sends Ku out to kind of investigate, see what it is, and well, lo and behold, there are some goblins that jump out and start an attack. So one thing leads to another. The whole party finally gets awake. There's a total of 3 goblins assailing us, and we're fighting and doing our thing. And one thing leads to another, and we kill the first goblin. But it's not a goblin. Now these things, we were already like, something's not right. These things are a little harder than normal to hit. One of them did this kind of like blink thing, like a misty step kind of action. We're like, these aren't real goblins. What's going on here? Well, we kill the first one, and it transforms into this like large monstrous thing. It's got like claws and fangs and like this gray funky hide, and it's just nothing nothing any of our players have seen, or excuse me, any of our characters have seen before. So we kill all 3 of them after some combat that was actually pretty successful. I mean, we did okay. It's like our first combat together as a group, so we managed to kind of pair off, and we handled it pretty well, I think. And so after we dealt with them, and we killed all 3 creatures, we kind of investigated them. They didn't really have any treasure on them, and so we decided to burn the bodies, like drag them away from our campsite and burn the bodies. And as soon as we put them in the fire, well, they just like poofed into nothingness. So we have no idea what these things are still. So that is something to file away to be investigated later. So kind of go back to sleep. We We wake up the next morning, kind of sleep in a little bit to get the full rest, and then head over to Vilson. We get there just a little bit after noon. We go to Ulf's Inn and talk with the innkeeper and get a little bit of information from him. And it seems that Mistress, what's her name? Mistress, excuse me, I'm looking for her name. Yelena Zanto is she's apparently a really good headmistress. She like really cares about the kids. She's been there for like 20 years or something like that. She might have even been the founder of the place, and seems to be a good woman. And everybody's concerned. It's kind of this small village, and the orphans are all good kids and help out around town, so everybody's worried. So we get some information from him. We all have a drink, and then we head over to the orphanage. Now, actually, I should say that two of our members, Miranda and Alina, they just left right. Like as soon as they got the barest bit of information from the innkeeper of where the orphanage was, they actually took off and headed over there. So the rest of us kind of finished our ales and then followed on a few minutes or a few moments behind them. Got to the orphanage, introduced ourselves. We went inside, and there's like, these kids are kind of getting ready for dinner or whatever. Talk to the kids are, they're scared. They're dealing with adults, and who are these strangers that just come in? And so we call in the headmistress and start to say hello and talk to these people and try to set them at ease. And so it was interesting. Oh, that's right. Lily went in and like just went right into this one of the little girls, Brenna, and just like, hey, you being treated okay? Like, are you getting treated well and all that? And like the child kind of got scared, a little freaked out a little bit. So then we kind of like calm things down. My character asked for the headmistress, and like, we're here to help and that kind of thing. And then Marana and Alina had actually stayed outside while the rest of us went inside. And then a few moments later, once we kind of called the headmistress in, Marana came in, and we went and basically had a short conversation with the headmistress, and she gives us a little more information about these first two kids were the first, the two boys, kind of the oldest boys, were the first two that were struck by this strange illness or whatever it is. Then it was like a few nights or maybe a week later, there was two girls, and then boys, girls. It kind of like has been going back and forth, and over about the course of a month to a month and a half, there's like 9 kids all told, I think, that have been affected. So she's freaking out, a little stressed out. So we talk to her, get as much information as we can, and we decide that some of us will talk to the kids while the others kind of go upstairs and look at these kids that are in this catatonic state. So we went back out, and Marana talked to Bray, one of the little girls, and she went down to like eye level to talk to this girl, and like, hey, she's like, hey, do you like kitties? I got a really big cat, real cool cat outside. Do you want to come check it out? And I have to say, this was some of the best role playing I've heard. It was so beautiful and brilliant and wonderful. The interplay between our DM, the bearded bugbear, and our and the character Marana was just fantastic. It was so awesome. It was kind of like intimate and perfect, and we kind of got a little more information, and her brother was one of the first two boys that was afflicted and all this, and it was just super role playing. I was so impressed, and so we got a little more information from her. Meanwhile, the other two of our other party members went upstairs, and kind of the cleric and the paladin, I guess, went upstairs and were checking out the kids. Well, our cleric decided to try using lesser restoration, her spell lesser restoration, on one of the kids. And lo and behold, when she casts a spell, these little slimy, like 1-inch worm crawls out of their ears. Like, ew, gross, right? That's disgusting. So she grabs that one, tries it on another one of the kids, 2 girls, and same thing happens. Grabs that thing, and she's like, what do I do with these? So they, let's see, so Lily and that was Lily and Perdita. So Lily kind of calls to Perdita. Perdita comes in and grabs a jar or something like that to put these things in. uh, and they're like, okay, well, what do we do now? So then, at the same time, our brave fighter Titus decided he would go. Sergeant Titus would go and talk to the militia, to the cat, like the head of the militia, captain of the militia, whatever, and see what he could find out there. Didn't really get much information. There are some like hunters and trappers that maybe have seen some strange kind of creatures that are around, and there was nothing specific, but just like more almost like sort of like rumors, but nothing that really led to any kind of indication of something that might be involved with the kids. So he proceeded to go back to the inn and drink a few more beers before rejoining the party. Then Lily and Perdita, they decided that they would do one more. Lily had one more use of her restoration spell, lesser restoration. So it was decided that Bray's, the little girl Bray's brother, who was also again one of the first two boys to get afflicted, would be the one that they restored, and or see if it worked, and because that way maybe they could get some more information from him, and he might have known like how this all started. So she tries the spell, it works. I sat on the bed next to the kid. I'm like, hey, you're gonna be all right, and we kind of talk to him and say, hey, what happened? And he says, well, the kids apparently had like a little tree fort or something, like a little fort out in the woods just outside of the orphanage where they would go and play. And apparently, one day the two oldest boys decided to go adventuring a little farther away, rather than a minute or two, 500 feet outside the orphanage. They went like a couple miles, it seems like. And he said he doesn't really remember much. They led to a cave, and apparently every time they came back, they had like mud on their hands or something like that. So what happened is, after we dealt with the kids, we're kind of figuring out like, what are we gonna do tonight? Like, maybe we should watch these kids. Marana actually went outside, like she went around to kind of look for tracks, search for tracks, and see what's happening out, see where these kids were coming and going to. Apparently, the two older boys were like leading the two girls. That was the most key thing we found out from Bray, the little girl Bray, is that she was like scared to tell anyone, or didn't think anyone would listen to her, or maybe Mistress Yelena was just too distracted and distraught. She saw the two older boys, Mika and Kyle, I think, or something like that. Let's see if I can find their names. Mika, I don't see. Mika and Kel. Mika and Kel were like leading the other kids out, and then all four of them would come back, and like the next day they were in this weird state. So she's only 6. She's like afraid to go and find out what's going on, and so she told us that. We also found a little more from Kel, and then Marana goes outside and she is looking for tracks, and she runs into Gwent, who is like the groundskeeper, kind of the handyman of the orphanage, and he is this sort of simple, kind of like, he's kind of he's not really well liked. He's a little awkward and doesn't really like to be around people, likes to keep to himself, I guess. And so Marana got a little bit of information from Gwent. He actually followed the boys the first night that the boys had ventured out, and apparently he saw these like dog-like creatures outside, and he got scared and took off. And so she reassured, he felt terrible. He was kind of like broke down crying. It was like he tried to tell the headmistress, but he just didn't know what to say. And Marana said, it's all right, you're here to tell us now, and now we got this information. So these kids would come back. He told her that these kids would come back, and they were like covered in mud, and they would like wash themselves in the well. Their clothes would be still dirty or whatever, and then they'd go back into their beds. And he was just, he was embarrassed because he felt so horrible that he tried to tell what happened, but he was just too embarrassed and too uncomfortable. He was terrified. He's just a simple guy, right? So We decide. So let's see. Perdita decides she's gonna cast alarm outside the door of the boys' room. We were originally just gonna like keep the kids separated, but then we decided we'd put all the kids that were still sick in one room, and then put all the healthy kids in a separate room. We set up alarm. Perdita casts alarm in case the kids like wander out during the night. Some of us slept inside, some of us slept outside. We just kind of kept an eye on things throughout the night. Luckily, it was a peaceful night. Nothing happened. It was uneventful. The next morning, Lily and Perdita, so the two girls, two women, decide they're gonna help heal three more kids, which they do. Grab the three worms. They're like in a jar. I'm not sure what we're gonna do it. In the meantime, actually, the night before, we sent a message back to the Vacter, like explaining, because we have this cool little notebook that we can write a message in, and it'll go back to home base, and they can send the magic book. They can write into their book and send a message to us. Neat little trick. So they sent us a message that sounded like these creatures that were out at this cave entrance sounded like gnolls. That's what the boy, he did his best to describe it, but it was really kind of hard to understand. At first, I thought maybe it was the same creatures that we encountered on the road, but no, they were what we think to be gnolls. So the next morning, we all decide like, all right, everything's good. We healed three more kids. Let's go follow these footprints and see where this cave is. So we headed out. We reached the cave. It's about like an hour away, hour north through the woods from the hour or so from the orphanage. We see these gnolls standing guard at the entrance. There's four of them, and we're kind of like, well, what are we gonna do? And that's where we ended the episode. And it was awesome. It was so much fun. I mean, everybody was fantastic. Again, role playing was great. The Bearded Bugbear gave every character and every kind of situation it's good amount of time to kind of develop, and then when it was a really nice moment, he would transition to another. Everything flowed beautifully in the session. It was a lot of fun, and man, I'm just so excited about this coming Saturday. I can't freaking wait. I think it's going to be fun. So hey, that was my quick rundown of what happened in session 1. Again, please check the links below. Go listen to the session for yourself if you're interested. It was a ton of fun. I think this is going to be an awesome campaign. I can't wait each week. I'm just like waiting for Saturday. So thanks for joining me. I appreciate you guys coming in and checking out my videos. I started DMing a new video on Mondays, so hopefully you'll come and check that one out as well. I'll have some more Car Wars videos coming out soon. All kinds of good stuff on its way. I can't say enough how much I appreciate you guys subscribing, liking, and so forth. And hey, please, comments are totally welcome. I appreciate any tips, tricks, anything you want to suggest. I'm open to all that. So let's start a conversation, huh? Of course, I can't wait to see you at a table. And as always, keep rolling 20s.